Alright, so this is the sad state of our spice cabinet. We have actually shared it on the blog. It was the first project that we did right after we moved in this house, so it's been now over 4 years. And it worked great for us for a while, but it's just become, well, I'll show you. It's become chaos. So we need a different system. I can never find anything because there's all this junk in the way. These labels and everything and this spice rack in the back are great, but we've overgrown because we've just gotten more and more. And we just needed a little more space, and I really want to use this shelf better for organizing some of our like leftover containers. So I think one of my plans for goals for the year was to get this under control. So our first woodworking project of the year is building a wall-mounted spice rack to go right above our little trash cabinet that we built late last year. You can see it's a little dirty, but the plan is to put the spice rack right above there. So we made it the same width as this one, and it's just gonna be a nice area on the wall. It's gonna look great, and we're getting all new containers, and then we've got labels, so it's gonna look so pretty when we're all done. I just can't wait. So this is the wood that we're using for the wall-mounted spice rack. So you can see we've got quite a bit of it here. We're using oak because we decided to stain this, and we're going to try like a light colored stain to kind of contrast the rest of the stuff in our kitchen. But we are getting started by cutting everything down. All right, so the first step is to cut your wood down to the length using a miter saw. And we are sharing the free woodworking plans for this one in the video description. There'll be a direct link to them. And in that, we have a visual cut list with all the measurements and the tutorial. So you'll definitely want to check that out if you're going to be building this. All right, so next we are going to drill the pocket holes. And for this, we're using the Craig 720 Pro. And we're marking the location of the pocket holes. We're just doing 1 inch in from the edges, and that's the recommended spacing when you're doing pocket holes on a board like this, just 1 inch from the edge. And then we will move on to actually drilling the pocket holes. So like I said, we're using the Craig 720 Pro to drill these. Super easy, great tool that we have in our workshop. We use all the time, and we have a full tutorial over on another video, so I'll be sure to link that here. You can check that out if you're interested in learning more about that. So next, you want to lightly sand all the pieces that have been cut. And for this, we're using an Orbital sander. We started with 80 grit sandpaper and then moved on to 150 grit sandpaper. All right, so we're going to be cutting down this piece of wood into square dowel pieces, and you could potentially find these and just buy square dowels for this instead, but they didn't have them at our local store in oak, which is what we're using. So we're going to be cutting this piece down using the table saw to make our own dowels. And these will go on the front edge of the spice rack. So again, like I said, using the table saw and a little push block that we've made out of plywood to cut these pieces down. Sorry about the shaky video. Our tripod was shaking as that was being filmed. Okay, so something that we just invested in for our workshop that we'll be using quite a bit now is this router bit, which will make a keyhole into the back for wall-mounted things. And then we also at the same time had to get a new router because our other router had burned out. So we're using this for the first time. Logan's tested it already to make sure everything works. But we're going to be, this is a piece that's going to go at the top of the spice rack in the back, and then we're going to be putting some keyholes in here so we can very easily mount it on the wall. All right, so you start with the board lifted up so it's not touching the router blade there. Turn on the router and then push it down into place. And you can see here that Logan has some other boards as guides set up to the exact areas that we need. So it's slightly off of that back sled when he pushes it down. And then once it's in, he pushes it all the way towards the sled to make the little keyhole. That is just so cool. And then of course, before you pull the board up, you want to turn the router off and make sure it has stopped spinning before you lift the board up. I definitely think we'll be using this in future projects. Let me know if you guys want a more detailed video on exactly how to use it. All right, so next you want to move on to assembly. And we started with just doing all 4 edges of the box and just using those pre-drilled pocket holes and then moving on to the shelves. And a few things that came in handy while we were assembling are the Craig 90-degree corner clamps. They were great for holding the shelves into place, and they have a little cutout there in the clamp where you can still drill your pocket hole. So that's super handy. And then the other thing for getting into tight spaces, which is really nice, it's the first time we've used this. This is the 90-degree pocket hole driver. And so you can see there the drill wouldn't normally fit in that tight space, but we just added that 90-degree driver and we were able to use that pocket hole even though it's a smaller space. So then after you've gotten all the shelves put on, you can put on your square dowel pieces to the front. And of course, these don't have pocket holes, so we nailed them into place. And then we put on the hanger board. And let me give you a different angle to kind of walk you through how we put on that hanger board up at the top. So we started by applying wood glue to the edges and just kind of smoothed it out so there wasn't a ton of excess wood glue. Then put it into place and clamped it vertically or horizontally across, and then we also added these small clamps vertically to push it up. So it's nice and sturdy in place up in the top corner, and then we used the finish nailer and 1.5-inch finish nails to nail it into place, and then we kept those clamps on while it was drying. And then while that was drying, we filled in all of our pocket holes with wood glue and oak pocket hole plugs. Once those are dry, you can sand them smooth. We actually needed to use a multi-tool sander to get into those tight spaces because our Orbital sander did not fit. So that's something you'll probably need if you're doing this project too. Next, you can apply wood filler on all of any blemishes, gaps on the joints, and then of course your nail holes from hanging or attaching the hanger board and the square dowels. And then once that is all dry, you can move on to sanding the structure again. We are using our trusty old Orbital sander, and I'm using 150 grit sandpaper here. And then be sure you wipe everything down really well before moving on to stain. We are using Minwax Special Walnut stain color here. It's a really pretty lighter wood color, and it looks great contrasting with our darker wood in our kitchen. And then to seal this, we're using an aerosol spray lacquer, which is great to get in all the little nooks and crannies. And then this is our method of hanging it. We've shared this method a few times, how we use painter's tape to hang stuff on the wall, and it is a great way to do it and get it nice and level. So you can see there, we put the painter's tape on the back and then mark a little hole where the keyhole is, and then just hold it up on a place and let that painter's tape stick to the wall. Make sure it's nice and level before moving on and drilling the holes for the piece. And we needed to use anchors here, so we made some larger holes there and then put in the anchors and screws, and then we were able to hang it up. And it's nice and level. Works every time. All right, so these are the new spice containers that I got. I got these on Amazon. I'll be sure to put links in the video description. They're a little bit larger than my other spice jars, which is something I was looking for, so I don't have to refill them as frequently. And then we also got those labels on Amazon as well. So I transferred everything, labeled it all. Felt like it took a million hours, but it didn't. So then it was time to fill it up, and I ended up alphabetizing everything so it's nice and easy to find all of the spices, and this is how it turned out. So here is a look at that before and the after. I am so glad that we were able to use some of that unused wall space, and I absolutely love how it turned out. I am so glad that we don't have the spices in that cabinet anymore. They were just driving me crazy. They're nice and organized, and it looks absolutely gorgeous, don't you think? So these jars, I love them. I love that they're a bigger size. They're 7.5 ounces. They have a nice wide top to them, so I can very easily get my measuring spoon in there to pull out the spices that I need. And you can see there, for the spice labels that were not included with the ones I needed, I just used a Sharpie marker and drew them myself. And then keep in mind for the top there, we needed to get some smaller containers because of that hanger board. The larger containers did not fit up there. So I did find some smaller ones that fit perfectly. We're keeping our spices up there that we don't use very often. So I kind of have to reach up on my tippy toes to get them. So it wasn't really that big of a deal for me to have a different spice container up on the top there. But that hanger board did make it difficult to get those bigger ones in. I think it looks great with our DIY trash can that we built last year. I like that we chose to do a lighter stain on this one, whereas we used the dark walnut on the trash can. So it's just a really nice contrast. Love how it turned out. Again, I will be putting links to all the tools we use, the jars, the labels in the video description, so you can check that out. And if you're wondering what happened to that spice cabinet, I am now using it for organizing our food storage containers. And I probably need to come up with a little better organizing system there. So let me know if you have any ideas. As always, we hope you enjoyed this video, learned something new, and are inspired. If you want to build this project yourself, be sure to hop on down to the video description for the link to the woodworking plans. And then while you're here, subscribe to our channel. You just click our picture right here, and then you can watch this video next. I think you'll love it. We will be back here next week with another video. So be sure you're subscribed and your notifications are turned on so you don't miss the next one. All right, have a great week.